Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Peter Davis, managing partner of Interplay. I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs advance society, and this podcast is definitively part of that effort. Today's a fun one because I've got a couple of entrepreneurs on the pod today who I chat with who carry that same ethos. They're really motivated by helping other founders, and it's given them a sense of purpose. So it's really lovely for me to hear other people thinking and acting that way. And these are not two random people. These are Mike and Kass Lazerow. And if you don't know who they are, if you've been paying attention to the startup scene in New York for the past 20 years, they are big names. They started a handful of companies. A couple of them have had some major exits, most notably Buddy Media, where they sold it for north of $500 million to Salesforce. They're a really unique story from an entrepreneurial perspective, not just because of their success, but because they've been successful together. They are a husband and wife combo, and they have been serially building over the past few decades. Started a handful of companies successfully, and now are making venture investments. It's a wonderful story, and it's all part of the lead up to the release of their new book, Shoveling Shit, a Love Story, which I think is appropriately titled for anyone who understands the real nature of what it is to be an entrepreneur. So I hope you find their insights helpful and inspiring, and hope you enjoy. Welcome, Mike and Kass. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
I know it's been all of 3 weeks since we saw you in
But it's
Miami.
a new year. It's a new year. Right. So happy New Year.
Let's dive in. I think it'd be really helpful to kind of get a little bit of your founder story. If you guys can run through that, I think you guys are, which we'll talk about, one of the more unique founder couples in the game. And I think we should baseline a little bit on what you guys have done.
Okay, Mike, do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Mike started his first company while he was in college, and I had kind of a kind of entrepreneurial experience in my first jobs out of college, in which I was opening up different digital arms of different companies. But we officially started working together for golf.com. And that was in 1998. We launched the company. And I started it and had a really great advantage of recruiting him because we lived together. And he came on board a couple months after. And we ran that company for a good 7 years before selling that to Time Inc. And then we started Buddy Media together. And that started the day of our third child's birth, literally that day. That was May 24th, 2007, where Facebook opened up their platform. And as I got wheeled into the out from the operating room, Mike said, I have an idea. And I thought, oh my God, he's getting me like sushi, all the things that I couldn't eat for 9 months. And he goes, no, I know what we're going to do next. So by way of saying all that is that we are, I think, both entrepreneurs at heart and have been that way since birth. I'll let Mike add to it.
Yeah, I came from a long line of entrepreneurs. My grandfather, who was one of my very close friends, built houses for low-income residents of Baltimore, Maryland. And I just remember him driving around, and he was running his own business. He'd talk to the plumbers. He'd talk to the electricians. I'd hang out at his office. He'd just be cutting deals. And it seemed like a much better way to spend the day than sitting behind a desk. And I just followed in really his footsteps. And, my stepfather, who really was like a father to me, I was 6 when he married my mom, ran a small financial advisory company. So, financial advisor where, wealthy families in the DC area gave him the money to manage. And, I went to journalism school at Northwestern University. The internet just grabbed me, and I kind of knew that I was going to jump into that. And that really started it all. And that was 1994, my junior year. And I started my first company and just kept going. And they just got bigger as I worked with Kass, because what I didn't have was the operating side, which is really, Kass is a phenomenal operator, great with people and understanding what motivates people, more of sales, product, vision. And we've built not only the companies, but our life together. And really, what we're focused on right now is how do we help entrepreneurs not only build businesses, but build lives that, match their vision and close the gap between what they want in life and how they're living their life.
Did you guys meet through the entrepreneurial journeys? It sounds like you met and then started the next thing. Kass jumped into it.
If you want to really hear this story, so I went to the all-girls school and Mike went to the all-boys school. My brothers went there. His brothers went to the all-boys school. And
this is high school?
High school. This is high school. And I was best friends with his older brother, Andrew. This is where Mike usually jumps in and says, I'm much younger and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to.
No, that's just a fact. Like that's not that's not an opinion. That's just a chronological fact in the history of our world. I had nothing to do with it.
So I grew up basically hanging out in Mike's house and with his older brother and all of our friends and really bribing him to leave the basement every time we all wanted to hang out in the basement. And he was the annoying little brother until about 1996 when we were seated next to each other at a mutual friend's wedding. And I was like, oh no, I think I really like my best friend's little brother. This is not good.
So that didn't click at all when he was a kid, right? You weren't stalking him when he was young?
Not at 13, when he was 13. No, it didn't. No.
Got it. Okay. So you guys met later in life, get on the entrepreneurship path, and just happened to be perfect complements. Who came up with the golf.com idea, Kass? You said you jumped into that first.
I did. I was obsessed with tracking all my stats playing golf, and I was competing against my dad and brother who were all, over the country, and I was using spreadsheets, and every time the spreadsheet would come back from my brother, he would like change all the formulas, so I knew he was cheating. Mm-hmm. So I literally said to Mike, isn't there some way we can like put this on the internet and he can't change it? And then of course, Mike with his brilliant visionary mind said, oh, wait a second, I have an idea. Let's start syndicating the content and let's get USGA handicaps official online.
Okay. And so since then you've been the operator creative, team. There's a line drawn down the sand. Got it. Right. How has that, have there been times where that's been hard for you guys to navigate staying in those roles?
Not at all for me. I mean, working with Mike, we are absolutely in our own lanes. I think the problems happen when we both try to jump in each other's lane.
Has that happened a lot?
I don't think at work. I think if you say parenting and writing this book, yes.
Because I think about the odds of this, right? So many entrepreneurs out there, very small percentage of them are successful. A very small percentage of entrepreneurs who do it once, do it twice. And an even smaller percentage of those do that with their spouse. So this is a super rare team dynamic. I think it's probably one of the most unique stories in New York for that matter. Okay, so you guys have figured this out. What would you guys say are kind of the tips to making a business relationship work on top of a marriage? We've seen couples come in and they break apart mid-journey or immediately after the journey, but usually it doesn't. The business gives or the marriage gives. What have you guys figured out? What's the secret sauce?
I'll start. I
can't wait to hear this.
I think number one, I think you already said it. You have to not have overlapping skill sets. So I think it was pretty amazing that I think you're right. It is very rare, but it was amazing in the beginning when I started working on golf.com and really looking toward Mike for all the vision product ideas. It was just very natural. So I think when you're picking a co-founder, you really have to realize that it is a marriage, just like you said, right? So you got to get it right because that is the person you're going to wake up texting, right? You're going to bed texting that person. So for those couples who are actually becoming, co-founders and they're moving forward with businesses, if you are in the same lane, I think that is a big issue. So that's the number one thing I think I'll say.
Yeah, and I would add that it's a constant work in progress, the co-founder relationship. And we've now done over 100 investments in startups, mostly tech, but also, restaurants and travel and, hotels and stuff like that. And the co-founder relationship's really hard. And it's a relationship that isn't that dissimilar to marriage, which is, trust, commitment. Are you pulling your side of the bargain, right? Like, is one person doing all the work and the other person's just kind of freeloading? You have aligned interests, so financial interests with the co-founder, hopefully, assuming the equity is worked out. And it can be a really hard relationship. There are days that are harder than others. I think writing this book was the first time we'd really worked on something together almost exclusively, right? Like this, we're the authors, a lot of the voice, there's kind of me, there's her, and then there's we. And let's just say it wasn't easy. We got into a flow. But working with any human being who's smart, who you respect, is not easy. And that is the basis of a lot of the downfalls of companies we've seen. It's not the market, it's not competition, it's not product, it's not customers, it's the around the kitchen table, the founders start fighting. I am the luckiest person in the world being able to work with someone who we not only have fun together and love each other, but we also know how to handle conflict. And I think that's a huge part of our partnership.
Yeah, it's funny. I talk to LPs a lot and they'll ask, okay, why did some of these companies go under? And there's that one X factor you can't diligence, which is future conflicts between founders.
Right.
They could come in a rosy relationship or at least paint that on day one, but doesn't mean that's what it'll be in a couple of years.
Right.
Now, you guys have written a book, and you're out producing a lot of content as a result. I was following you guys on TikTok, and we'll see if TikTok is around by the time this is released. What's the book about?
Mike, you take that. I've been starting all of them.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, it's a really honest look at entrepreneurship. It's not just the business side, but the imbalanced life of the entrepreneur and what we think it takes to make it as an entrepreneur. There is no harder way to spend your day than being an entrepreneur. The suffering, the misery, it's called shoveling shit, a love story for a reason, because entrepreneurs get to work and shit hits the fan and they have to start shoveling it. The difference between entrepreneurs and many others is we learn to love the shovel. We learn to kind of find our purpose in it and find our passion. And we say all the time that there's no worse way to spend your day and there's no better way. It puts you on a path to be fired up every day. And ultimately, as you're successful, open up lives that at least we as young entrepreneurs could have never imagined. And it's this idea of the beauty in the struggle, which is kind of a line from a J. Cole song, which is one of our favorite, that we're tried to capture. And we tried to wrap the 50 cheat codes that we wish we knew when we started out inside these stories, because we didn't want to write a book that was just an how-to, because everyone's different. Every company's different. But what are those just universal lessons that all entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs will face along the way? And how do we kind of elucidate and talk about them in really fun ways? We've been really lucky to work with incredible people.
So who should buy this book? Who's it targeted at?
Every entrepreneur, anyone who's thinking about starting a company, current founders, VCs. If you're a VC right now and you have a whole portfolio company, this is a great book for them because we go over some really important lessons. We've touched on, how you pick a co-founder. There's, understanding the fundraising process and why it's not always about the biggest valuation, right? And then we talk about the cult in culture. I believe that you need to really focus on how, especially as a startup, like how are you going to create the community around you so that when the shit hits the fan, right, and you're able to pivot, those people are still standing behind you and following what you need them to do. So I think pretty much anyone who's ever thought about starting a business should buy it.
It's terrific. I think this is the kind of content everyone should be buying, because even if you've been through these journeys, I'm going to buy it. There's always more nuance and challenges that you just can't have lived them all. Right? And if you're doing it in a kind of a case format where people are experiencing it through your story, that's really the best way to learn.
Yeah. Thanks.
Now, Mike, when I saw you last, we were at a conference for people who have already sold companies, and there was a lot of people there. And I think on the outside, people who haven't been that successful yet, and that's a really fortunate moment to be able to get all the way to the end. It sounds like a bunch of really lucky people kind of around a campfire singing Kumbaya. That's what you would anticipate the conference is. On the inside, it's a lot of malaise. It's a lot of people depressed, feeling down about not having a purpose or a meaning. And they're lost as they're kind of trying to figure out what to do next. You and I were kind of commiserating on the fact that we both stayed in the game and found purpose in that.
Yep.
Is that why you're writing the book? How did the book come to fit into this journey you're on now? What is the journey you're on now that's giving you purpose and meaning?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's why we wrote the book, but our experience after selling to Salesforce is a huge part of the book. And the reason is we didn't know as we were suffering through entrepreneurship. Literally, we went, 5 years at Buddy Media, went from 0 to hundreds of employees, offices all over the world, including Singapore and London, and one of the fastest companies ever to reach 50 million in annual recurring revenue. We were beaten down. We were not doing well together at the end. We weren't connected because we were both traveling. We had young kids. We had kids who had various needs and who weren't doing particularly well. And then I tried to retire. I was incredibly miserable. It was the most miserable I've ever been. And as we talked about it, we realized that we work, we shovel. It's what we do. What we do is we get up and we build. We help others build. And it's that journey of the entrepreneur of shoveling more than you ever thought possible, thinking you hate it, but realizing that when given the opportunity to go work and sit at a desk, even making a lot of money on Wall Street, whatever, entrepreneurs would not choose anything else. The only reason you go back to the working world is if you just need to, right? The company fails, you're out of money, you need to feed a family, which we were close to, right? We've been there. Like there's a good chance that if we didn't succeed at golf.com or early UWire, that we would have gotten a job. We found that bills don't pay themselves. We have to, you got to make money, whatever your bills are. And I think that whole kind of imbalanced life and the appreciation is why we call it Shoveling Shit a Love Story. Right? This is not a negative book. It is a celebration of entrepreneurship and a realization that what you're doing as an entrepreneur is one of the hardest things in the world. And what's been interesting is we had a few copies printed, just like pre-publishing before the June launch. We sent it to others who've been shoveling, including yourself, but also some of our investors. And one of our investors read it. And you may know him, Howard Lindzon, who is an entrepreneur himself at StockTwits. And he's like, I'm in for 200 copies. Every entrepreneur I know has to read this. It speaks the language to both entrepreneurs and actually, he said investors. He's giving it to investors because as investors who haven't started companies, you don't know the misery. You don't know what it's like to talk to the spouse late at night, to face running out of money, not seeing your kids at really important times, not being around. And so I think this book, when we decided, it just seemed everything we do in our gut feels right. We didn't do this for any reason other than, the first 50 years was all about earning for us. So earning degrees and reputation and respect and money and all this stuff. This next 50 years, which knock on wood, we have 50 years, is all about impact. And we thought this was a great way to kick it off. Not that we're not going to start companies or invest and do all that stuff, but how do we do it in a way that impacts people the way we want to impact people?
Therein lies that second mission for you guys, which is beautiful. And, seeing folks who kind of make it out of the valley of despair after the exit, which, as someone has carefully said, it's the moment that people get the world's smallest violin. Right. It's usually the motivation can no longer be just money if you've had a good financial outcome. Right. It has to be something more meaty. It has to be
purpose. I think for me, I've always wanted to give back. We made our companies, like our part of our mission was to always give back. It actually was on a board above our kitchen table too, to show our kids that, you always give back. You never give up and you always give back. And so these next 50 years, as Mike and I sat down, and our daughter, yay, she just got into Northwestern, go Wildcats.
There you go. Congrats.
When she's gone to school in September, like, how did we really want to think about our next 50 years? And it came down to us saying, okay, if we get about 3 to 5 calls every week helping entrepreneurs, how can we make a bigger impact? And I think that's where we thought, okay, let's write the book first and try to get the messages that we say on a weekly basis out to as many entrepreneurs as we can. And then let's try to get the same messages and give, VCs opportunities for their portfolio companies to ask us anything, because we've been there, we've been in the trenches, we know what it's like to lose, and we know what it's like to win.
The book is a great concept for delivering those insights. When the book's out and everyone's reading it and the dust settles, what are you guys doing next? Do you have the next step in the roadmap figured out, or you'll figure it out then?
I have to say, like, I would really like to think about getting some of our band back together from Buddy Media. I've thought about, is it an incubator, an accelerator, something like that? But I'm not gonna jump too fast, because I also think I like the education route, and I would like to help as many entrepreneurs as we can. So that's what I'm thinking. Mike, what are you thinking? What's your new idea?
Figure
this
this
week?
out on the podcast right now.
So, I mean, first of all, we're very busy now. We have a venture firm, has about 400 million assets under management. We have been buying cash flow businesses, starting with a healthcare recruiting company, staffing company, and looking at others. So we never stop. And I think this is a great place, a great kind of turning point to figure out really what do we want to do when we grow up. So if anyone has any ideas, please reach out. I mean, we love working with people we love good new ideas. We haven't ruled out starting companies. We haven't ruled out.
I've definitely ruled out starting another company. I just want you to know. Well,
breaking news. Kass has ruled out starting companies. I think we're driven by our gut, and when things feel right, we jump in and we do it. And if it continues to feel right, it's going well, we do more of it. And if it doesn't, we change it. And so pivot has been a big part of our life, since, both kind of metaphorically and figuratively. I almost died twice, artificial heart valve. I've had to pivot just, my health. And then, the businesses, it's never up and to the right. And that's our life. Like, we'll do stuff that works, some that doesn't work. We try to do less of what doesn't work and more of what works. It sounds easy. We somehow get in our own way. We being specifically we, and the universal we have ways of telling ourselves stories and doing stuff that, let's just say, is suboptimal.
Okay, so everyone can pick up a copy of the book. How else can other people listening to this help out? Are there people you're looking for, ideas you guys are chasing right now?
Yeah, there are a few ways. One is we don't look at this as just a book. So anyone who buys the book gets these ridiculously valuable resources. So buy one copy, and it's about $350 of like retail. But we're having, January 23rd, we're having a founders farm meeting, which is our community, which we just hang out. It's really entrepreneurs helping other entrepreneurs, but it's time with us, and entrepreneurs bring, issues that they're dealing with. Hey, how would you handle this? A lot of people don't have the support system. Great interview with Seth Meyers. He sat down and talked to us about the book and what we're doing. And then their resources. So there's stuff we use for every company that we don't recreate. And so if you buy the book, you get them. Budgets, strategic plans, how to put together, how to focus an organization. And so we look at this as not a transactional world of like, buy the book and disappear. This, in many ways, as evidenced by the Founders Farm, is the beginning of, we hope, regardless, a larger community. Even though we're not going to monetize the community, but that's a part of the impact, is how do you connect entrepreneurs to each other to help each other.
Wonderful. Mike, Kass, thanks for being on today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
All right. Huge shout out to Mike and Kass for doing the pod today. I love their story, what they're building, how they're collaborating with each other. Massively inspiring. definitely check out their new book. You can find details and a link to it in the show notes. Buy a copy, read it. You're supporting them, but more importantly, get the word out. Help other people find the book. Investors and entrepreneurs, everyone should be reading content like this. Be better at the game. So with that, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.